this episode of Extraordinary Women TV. I'm Shannon Skinner, host of Extraordinary Women TV, and I'm live here at the Toronto Indy. Now, I know you began racing very young in a go-kart, I believe. Is that how you got your start?
That is how I got my start. Although, believe it or not, 13 years old is actually kind of old to start racing go-karts. Most kids started around 6 or 7, but I grew up in a family where we were just race fans. No one in my family raced, and so we really didn't know any better.
I was in a race in a go-kart as a child, and I actually fell out of the car on the track, and that totally ended my racing career right there and then.
Yeah, that's not necessarily the best way to start.
You started go-karting as a child, and at some point you became a race car driver. Take us through that journey of what inspired you to become a race car driver.
Well, from literally the first time I sat in a go-kart, I knew I wanted to do it again and again, and very quickly it stopped being a hobby and started being something that I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And you know, that set me on a journey through open wheel cars in Europe. I came to the States in 2009, and I've been here ever since.
So, and what about family pressure? I mean, when you had this dream and aspiration to become a driver, it does require a lot of travel. But with the start, I mean, did you get support from your family, or were they nervous about it for you, or?
I don't think you can pursue something like this without support from your family.
So your inspiration. So then take us through what you had to do to acquire the skills for anyone who wants to become a race car driver.
So very important, getting in go-karts at an early age. I don't recommend waiting until you're 13 to get into a go-kart. The earlier the kids start out racing, if they discover they love it, just help them keep racing and be supportive of them. And that's the biggest thing. That gives you a lot of the skill sets you need when you first move into open wheel.
So what is the top speed you've clocked so far?
So qualifying for this year's Indianapolis 500, we actually had a fairly fast qualifying this year. So I think my full lap average was something like 229.3 miles an hour over the 10 miles.
Now, Pippa, how do you get past fear?
Well, I'm scared of heights, but obviously I'm not trying to climb a high wall when I'm driving a race car. So while I might be scared of heights, obviously I'm not scared of what I do when I'm driving. So
tell us about your relationship with the Susan G. Komen organization, and what does that mean to you?
So Susan G. Komen is a partner of mine, and we launched a partnership this year at this year's Indianapolis 500 with the pink Susan G. Komen car. And it was pretty incredible to be a part of that organization and to bring that car to the track. It meant so much to so many people, so many survivors, so many co-survivors, so many people who have lost loved ones. And the statistic in the US in particular is that 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. That's a scary number. But when you replace that number with actual people who kept coming to find me in my garage area, who got in contact with me on social media, it suddenly gets a lot scarier. One of the other things I'm doing with Susan G. Komen is, and by the time this airs, my helmet will have actually already sold, but my race-worn helmet from the Indy 500 was turned pink this year, as well as the car in support of Susan G. Komen, and that's currently being auctioned off on eBay by the Komen Central Indiana affiliate to raise money for Susan G. Komen. So that's it's an association I'm really, really proud of, and I'm thrilled that I'm a Komen athlete.
Was there anyone you looked up to, other female racers, when you started your career?
So when I was a little girl and a race fan, I used to look up to a British driver called Nigel Mansell, who ran with the Red 5 on his car. And that was because he was always so determined. He wouldn't let anything get in his way. He was determined and courageous, and that really stood out for me. Then when I was a little older and I was 17 and I was racing go-karts, my dad gave me a magazine, and in the magazine there was a story about Sarah Fisher, the IndyCar driver. And she had just qualified on pole and come second in a race at Kentucky. And it was the first time I had ever heard of another female driver doing that well in any form of open wheel in the world. And so that really piqued my interest in IndyCar for the first time, and then I started following the career of Sarah.
What are you most proud of so far?
If you'd have asked me that before this May, I would have told you that it was a toss-up between being the only female to ever sit on pole at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in any category, which I achieved in the feeder series Indy Lights in 2010, or qualifying for my first Indy 500 in 2011 when we had 42 cars competing for the 33 spots. But it's actually neither of those anymore. The achievement I'm most proud of as of this May is my association with Susan G. Komen and the fact that I am now out there in this pink race car and I get to race with this pink race helmet and wearing pink to raise awareness for such a special cause.
And now, the Good to Know Minute. So, Pippa, it's time for our Good to Know Minute, and I know you've got a great success tip.
Be determined. You've got to be really determined. You've got to be courageous. You can't give up at the first hurdles. You've got to really believe in yourself, and there are going to be days where you've got to dig deep, and that all goes back to starting with being determined.
So what do you think about Toronto?
I love this place. This is actually one of the tracks where I really hope that my career gives me a chance to race again here in an IndyCar at some point in the future. I've raced here in the feeder series, but I'd love to come back and race here in an IndyCar. It's such a fun track.
And if you weren't racing cars, what would you be doing?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And this is kind of an interesting answer, given that at the moment I spend a lot of my time sitting in a commentary booth calling races for IndyCar Radio. But when I was a little girl and I was a race fan and I was watching races, I used to stand there and shout at the TV. I was that little girl, he didn't do that, don't say that, he did this. And so it sort of seems appropriate that as an adult, when I'm out of a race car, I spend my time being the person that little girls across the country are no doubt shouting at when their dad's got the radio on saying, don't say that, he didn't do that, I'm sure he did this instead. So, you know, I've become I've gone from the person being the home critic to being the person who is criticized by all those at home for whenever I get things wrong.
Well, thank you for spending some time with us and sharing your story and your message and your inspiration, and enjoy your time here in Toronto.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad we got done in time, because those really noisy cars you keep hearing are about to get a whole lot noisier when they're at full tilt.
If you would like to be a guest on Extraordinary Women TV, visit our website at extraordinarywomentv.com. I'd love to hear from you. Follow me on Twitter at Shannon_Skinner or on Facebook at Extraordinary Women TV. I'm Shannon Skinner. Join us next time for another episode of Extraordinary Women TV.